Last week I followed a class with RosaMaría Barrientos to make sopes and garbanzo chipotle soup. The first part of the process is to make a garbanzo chipotle sopa. I have a large pot here and there's some oil in that pot. Turn it up. When it is hot, we'll just throw in 1/2 of a yellow onion diced and a garlic clove minced. This gets sauteed until the onions are translucent. When they are translucent, we will add 1/2 pound of tomatoes diced, a bunch of cilantro chopped, and the equivalent of 2 15-ounce cans of garbanzo beans. This all gets cooked for 10 minutes before the next step. That next step is to add 2 cups of water while all this is cooking. After about another 10 minutes of cooking, we will blend about half of the soup and a chipotle. I just got the chipotle from a can of chipotle in adobo. Once that's all blended, add it back to the main pot with the rest of the soup and mix. That's the end of the soup. For the roasted tomatillo salsa topping, we need 5 tomatillos, 1 clove of garlic, and 1 serrano pepper, charred by baking or roasting in a 350-degree oven for 20 minutes or more. All roasted ingredients will be added into a blender. We'll add 1/4 cup of water into the blender with those ingredients and blend until it's smooth. The blended salsa will be added into a bowl for serving. The recipe called for adding a sprig of cilantro and a pinch of salt. Unfortunately, I forgot to reserve some cilantro for this. I used it all in the soup. Another topping for the sopes is a mushroom tinga. I had to look this up on Wikipedia. According to this source, chicken tinga is a Mexican dish made with shredded chicken in a sauce from tomatoes, chipotle chiles in adobo, and sliced onions. Apparently, this is a vegan version of that. So instead of chicken, we have as the first ingredient 1 pound of shredded mushrooms. We add a tablespoon of oil to a saute pan, or I have here a cast iron skillet. When the oil is hot, the mushrooms are added and sauteed for about 5 minutes, seasoned with salt, and then moved to a bowl. There should have been 3 tomatoes to add to a chipotle, garlic, Mexican oregano, and salt and pepper and vegetable broth for blending. But I forgot the tomatoes and I forgot the oregano. Without those things, the next step is to fry some thinly sliced onions. After about 4 minutes of sauteing, stirring, another clove of garlic is added and the sauteing is continued for another minute. Then we will turn the heat to low and pour in the sauce. That gets cooked for 5 minutes until the sauce is thickened. I wouldn't recommend leaving the spatula in the pan like I did because that made it super hot. After the first 5 minutes of thickening, add the mushrooms back in and let the dish simmer for about 20 minutes. The sauce will continue to thicken and coat the mushrooms and onions. After the salsa and tinga, a third topping we prepare for the sopes is frijoles de la hoya. We start by adding and heating oil in a small pan. Then we add onions and saute the onions for 2 to 3 minutes or so until they are translucent. To these translucent onions, we add about 15 ounces of pinto beans. You could get that from a can and just throw the liquid in there also, or you could cook them at home. After the beans are heated, smash them with, like I use this masher here. After the salsa, tinga, and frijoles de la hoya, the fourth topping we prepare for our sopes is quick pickled onion. Thinly slice as much onion of whatever color you prefer and place those thin slices pulled apart into a bowl. Add about a tablespoon of olive oil. Season with some lime juice. I just use this fake lime because it's easy for me. And season with some salt. The recipe calls for a sprig of oregano or thyme, but I forgot to bring those today. Have your chickpea and chipotle soup and your toppings of salsa, tinga, and onion and pinto beans. It's time to make the sopes themselves. You start with a pound of masa for tortillas and a teaspoon of turmeric and a half teaspoon of black pepper in a little bit of water. Add the turmeric and pepper in water into the masa dough and knead it until everything is well mixed. Off a piece of dough to form a ball about 2 inches in diameter. Flatten this into a disc about 1/4 inch thick. This is your raw sope. You can shape it in different shapes depending on what you like. You could also use a tortilla press, but I don't have one of those, so I just use my hands. Place each sope to cook in a hot skillet. Let them cook about 5 minutes on the first side until it is opaque and it can be flipped without sticking. When it's done on both sides, you can take the sope onto a chopping board and press a rim around the edge. I actually had a hard time doing this. My sopes were too hard to hold the shape. But that's okay. These flat sopes can still hold their toppings. We put a little bit of beans on this one. Add a little bit of mushroom tinga to another. Then add lettuce on top of that as a secondary topping. Or we could add onion. A little bit of salsa on top of everything else. With all these sopes and ingredients, have fun playing mix and match with the garbanzo chipotle soup on the side. This is a full meal. Buen provecho.